Hey darlings, I wanted to give you guys some help on this first assignment. A lot of you are having trouble with the first page, which surprised me. I thought that would be the easy one, and you're doing a great job on the second page. I love it when you guys surprise me. But anyway, here's the deal. This whole oval or ellipse that you see before you, that represents the real numbers. So everything in there is a real number. If you notice, real numbers have are basically split into two. They're either irrational or rational. And we're using the letter R for real numbers. We're using I for irrational numbers. And we're using Q for rational numbers. Q means quotient, right? So when you get asked what categories does a number fit in, your first question should be, is it rational or is it irrational? And irrational numbers are either non-repeating decimals that go on forever, like pi, or they're square roots of non-perfect squares, like square root of 2 or square root of 7 or square root of 11. So it's usually pretty easy to tell whether it's irrational. If it's irrational, it's also real. So your answer in that case is going to be oops, sorry, bad button. Okay, sorry about that. Still not so great at writing on the screen. Anyway, if you've got an irrational number, then your answer is going to be IR, because if it's irrational, it's also real, right? Because any number that you're working with is a real number. Okay, so what's a rational number? Well, that's a number that can be written as a fraction, right? So obviously something like 2/3 is a rational number, 2/3. But so is 5, because 5 can be written as a fraction, right? You could write it as 10/2 or 5/1. So once you realize your number is rational, then you have to ask yourself, is it also an integer? We use a Z for integers. And integers don't have decimals. They are negative and positive, but they don't have anything behind the decimal point. So it would be like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Now, whole numbers are kind of like integers except no negatives, and we use those as a W. So if it's a W, it's also a Z, Q, and R, right? If it's a Z, it's also a Q and R. That's what this Venn diagram is helping you to see, I hope, is that everything that's an integer is also a rational number. You can write any integer as a rational number by just putting a 1 under it. Whole numbers are a subset of integers, right? They're 0 and all the counting numbers. And then the last one is natural numbers. Those are just counting numbers. So the first numbers that you used when you were a little kid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You didn't learn about 0 till you were older. So if it's a rational number but not an integer, your answer is going to be QR. If it's an integer, like a negative integer, let's say, your answer is going to be ZQR, right? If it's 0 or a positive integer, an integer is, again, no decimals, right? Then your answer is going to be WQR. And if it's a natural number, if it's a counting number, your answer is going to be NWQR. So what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible answers to the questions on the first page of the sets of numbers assignment. I hope this was helpful.